Hello and welcome to Jackson's Job. Today you will learn how to bake a spiced Swiss roll with cream cheese frosting. This cake is a Genoa sponge, perfectly spiced and airy. The cream cheese frosting is tangy and just lightly sweetened. Don't let the amount of ingredients scare you off. This is quite simple to make. Let's get to baking. You will need either a jelly roll pan or a cake pan that is 9 inches by 13 inches or 23 by 33 centimeters. A jelly roll pan is preferred, but a cake pan works just fine if you don't have one. You want to grease and line the bottom with parchment paper. Please preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 190 degrees Celsius. In a small bowl, we are going to sift together our flour and our spices. We need 2/3 cup of flour, 100 grams. To that, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 2 grams, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 2 grams, 1/2 teaspoon of ginger, 1 gram, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1.25 grams, and 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, 0.5 grams. If you don't have allspice, you can substitute it for cloves and nutmeg. Just use 1/8 of a teaspoon each. And if you don't have any of these spices, you can use pumpkin pie spice, use 1.5 teaspoons or 3 grams. We're going to mix this together and set it aside. In a large bowl, we have 4 large eggs, 200 grams. To that, we're going to add in some sugar, 1/2 cup of sugar or 100 grams. And we are going to beat this on a medium speed until we get to ribbon stage. This will take quite a while, maybe 8 to 10 minutes longer if your eggs are cold. You want to be able to draw the figure 8 without it breaking. Next, you're going to add in some vanilla, 1 teaspoon or 5 milliliters. Beat it until it's just combined. You don't want to knock out all that air. Now we are going to sift in our flour mixture from earlier, and using a whisk, we are going to go through the outside and cut into the middle. And we're going to do this until all the flour is incorporated. To knock out the least amount of air, add in the flour mixture a quarter at a time. Now we are going to pour this into our pan that we prepared earlier and level it the best we can. The better you level it, the better your roll will be and less cracks will form. If you do not use parchment paper on the bottom of your pan, it will stick to the bottom and it'll be very difficult to remove. So please don't forget the parchment paper. Now you just want to tease this into the side. If you want to, you can just tilt it and let it flow for you. Once you have an even layer, bake it 8 to 10 minutes or until a toothpick inserted in the middle comes out clean. You do not want to overbake this. Overbaking it will cause cracks. If you do get cracks, don't worry, just serve it anyway. It'll still be delicious. While the cake is baking, you want to generously spread some powdered sugar on top of a clean towel, parchment paper, or wax paper. You want to use 2 tablespoons or 16 grams. Now you may need a little bit more or a little bit less depending on how heavy-handed you are. I do prefer a towel because the parchment paper and the wax paper can trap moisture, which can make it difficult to remove at the end. You're going to take the cake from the oven carefully and you're going to separate it from the sides of the pan. Do not use metal utensils on nonstick cookware. This is an old cake pan that is aluminum and I am not concerned. Once you have the cake separated from the sides, carefully move it over to the towel and turn it upside down quickly. You want to do this while the cake is still warm if possible, but don't burn yourself. Be sure to wear oven mitts. You want the cake to line up with one of the edges of the towel, parchment paper, or wax paper. Carefully remove the parchment paper from the bottom of the cake, taking your time so you don't tear it. If you go too fast, you will tear the cake. On one of the short ends, you want to carefully roll this up into a log. If you are having trouble, you can score the edge of the cake before you roll it, but I don't find it necessary if you roll it up while it's still warm. Cool it completely on a wire rack. If you need to, you can use another towel to prop it up. Now we are going to make our frosting. We need 1/4 cup of butter that is softened, 56 grams. Beat this first and then add in your cream cheese. If you don't beat your butter first, the cream cheese can cause lumps in the butter. You need 1/2 cup of cream cheese, 113 grams. Beat that until it's smooth and then let's add in some vanilla. We want 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, that's 2.5 milliliters. Mix this until it's smooth. Now we're going to add in our powdered sugar. 1 cup of powdered sugar or 125 grams. If you want it less sweet, go for 1/2 cup or 63 grams. That's what I like to do. Don't add it all in at once. Try to add just a little bit at a time or it'll become grainy. You want to beat this until it is really nice and smooth like this. Now we are going to frost our cake. You're going to unroll that cooled cake from earlier. Do it carefully to try to avoid cracks. Sometimes cracks still occur no matter what you do, so don't worry if they happen. You can cover them up later with powdered sugar. Carefully frost this in an even layer and make sure you get underneath that rolled up edge. You don't want a lot of frosting on here because if you put too much on, it just smears out at the bottom. I like to frost this edge to edge because I'm going to cut off the edges anyway. Now you just want to carefully roll it back up without the towel this time. Look, no cracks. That's amazing. You have two options. You can roll this into the towel and then roll it in some plastic wrap until it's firm. What this does is it helps keep the moisture out of the cake. However, this can also lead to an overly dry cake, so I don't really recommend this. If the top of your cake gets moist, it's easily cured by just sprinkling on some powdered sugar. That is the nature of a lot of Swiss rolls. You have to combat moisture on top of the cake versus a dry, cracked cake. This is the way you can make it less moist on top. I'll let you try both ways and see which way you like. If you decide to use the towel, let it store until it's firm and then remove the towel and then re-wrap it up in the saran wrap overnight. Because it has cream cheese frosting, this has to stay chilled until you're ready to serve it, and it has to be put back in the fridge or you have to discard the leftovers. I personally like to wrap it straight in plastic wrap so that the cake is really nice and tender in the end. After it is chilled at least 2 hours, preferably the next day, we're going to unwrap the cake and then we're going to sprinkle it with some more powdered sugar. You don't have to do this step, it just helps with presentation and takes out any stickiness you may feel on top of the cake. Cut off the ends because they're not as pretty and the cake is a little bit dry here. When you cut off the ends, the swirl also gets better. Let's cut off another piece and let you see it up close. Use a serrated knife if you have one because it'll give you a nice clean cut. And look at this beautiful swirl of cream cheese frosting. Isn't it just pretty? If you want more cream cheese, feel free to double the recipe. Now let's look at the cake that we wrapped in a towel for a while. As you can see, it is still not cracked and it is very dry on the top. When you touch it, it doesn't feel sticky at all. Again, I'm going to just dust it with some powdered sugar. This time it's just purely decoration and it's not to absorb any of that moisture. You do the exact same thing. You cut off the ends because the ends will be more dry and you won't have that beautiful swirl at first. Use a serrated knife as usual so that you get a nice clean cut, and use a sawing motion. If you press straight down, it will compress the swirl. And look at this. It also has a pretty swirl. It is a really nice tender crumb and it's absolutely delicious. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Thank you for watching, and as always, happy baking.